You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national insurance columnist and financial color commentator. And today and all this week, we're doing our personal performance series with Dr. Jack Singer. Today's show, The Internal Critic, the origins of self-doubt.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, and we're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial advisors right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And with me today again, Dr. Jack Singer. Welcome again. Day two, Jack.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Well, listen, we've been talking about Jack's pedigree about sports. I mean, you're the sports psychologist. You're kind of the guy that the big professionals go to. You've been on ESPN, Fox Sports, and you just recently came into our world. You're at Transamerica speaking to their top advisors using the same tools and the same techniques that you use with some of the top professionals in football, baseball in our world. I would have never made, I'm sorry, this is just Steve's ignorance, I would have never made the jump that our area, our environment, the atmosphere we play in is about the same as the pros.
Absolutely. I have a program called Developing and Maintaining the Mindset of a Champion Advisor During Challenging Times. The same as I would talk to an athlete about developing and maintaining the mindset of a champion athlete regardless of the situation. How do you bounce back from setbacks? Things you have no control over for advisors. They can't control the economy. They can't control the stock market. What can they control? They can control their internal dialogue. And unfortunately for most of us, whether we're athletes or advisors or anybody, about 87% of our internal dialogue is negative. Most of what we think is negative.
Why is that, Doc?
Well, it started really from the time we were children, because parents who are well-meaning but not informed have usually tried to protect their children by saying, don't try out for the team, you're not really that good an athlete, or I don't think you ought to run for homecoming queen because frankly there are some prettier girls, or you're not talented enough to try out for the show. In my case, my father used to tell me, you really want to speak publicly? And he was a shy person. He said, you're going to get embarrassed. People, you're not going to know what to say. And so these kinds of ideas get planted in our subconscious mind. In fact, someone once researched this and found that the average youngster in this country from the age of 6 to 18, during that 12-year gap, is told negatives or don't try it or it's not good enough or you're not good enough 148,000 times to 4,000 positives by parents, teachers, peers, people like that. So is it any wonder with a ratio of 148 to 4 why so many of us have self-doubt when we grow up, why we don't have the confidence we should have? And as one of my mentors who taught me everything I know about sports psychology used to say, sports hypnosis used to say, the subconscious mind is like a beautiful garden that's supposed to be planted with flowers, but these parents and other authority figures who give us these negatives are planting weeds in the gardens, and then we start watering and fertilizing the weeds by repeating the same negatives to ourselves. I better not do it. What if something happens? I won't be successful. I don't know if I'm doing this the right way. And so we continue to do that. That's the bad news, and that's where all of this thing called the internal critic gets started. The good news is it's all fixable.
When you say it's fixable, Dr. Jack, I want to know, is it something where your intervention is an abrupt issue, or your intervention is, I'm going to walk you through, I'm going to evolve you into this thinking?
Both. The abrupt issue is as simple as a rubber band to snap every time you feel that you have a negative thought coming in your head. And then I tell you what to do after that. So you can abruptly stop it. In fact, on one of your other shows, we're going to talk about a 5-step series where we'll do that. But the evolvement is, first we have to understand what the pattern of your negative thinking is. So if I'm working with an advisor, for example, I will say, keep a little notebook on your desk, and every time during the day a negative thought goes through your mind, and I'll describe what I mean by that. Any thought starting with what if, or I hope, or maybe, these are negative thoughts because they're not positive and forthright. Anytime there's a negative thought in your mind, write it down and don't screen it out. Write everyone down. And then after a week or so, I can see what the pattern of thinking is that this person goes through, and we can design a plan to eradicate that. The same way that I would teach a football quarterback to stop thinking about hearing feet coming close to him, or maybe I'm going to get tackled, or what if I throw an interception? I need to know what the pattern of thinking is so we can learn how to change that to a different kind of thinking that leads to productivity and success.
Well, I'm thinking if a person's that concerned, and in the NFL, I'm sure it's a concern, if you're concerned about somebody coming through that line to take you out, and that is their #1 job description, and you are already uptight about a pass play that's going to be a tight route, and you might just not thread it.
Right.
And that happens all the time. I can't believe how that couldn't constrict your physical ability to throw it.
It not only constricts it physically, but it goes back to when we lived in caves and we have this fight or flight nervous system. And what happens is that when your brain thinks that there's an emergency or that your life is being threatened, it freezes you or has you tighten up your arms and legs to fight off a predator. Well, unfortunately, the default position in the subconscious mind is if you're worried about something, your brain doesn't know if that's going to be life-threatening or not, so it's not going to take a chance. It's going to freeze you. So somebody who's analyzing a game situation, or a financial planner or advisor or producer who's analyzing what they're going to say to their next client and how they're going to have a problem with it, the same thing happens. The brain goes into freeze mode because it thinks that you're being threatened. And so physiologically, something prevents us from performing. So we need to break it down at the cause.
Let's just go down that road. If I knew I have a DEFCON level of alert system inside me internally, how can I gun that down? You know, because I'm at DEFCON level 5, and I might even not know why I'm even uptight about this.
Well, the very first way you can get it down, as soon as you recognize the symptoms, is breathe.
Well, that sounds pretty simple.
It does sound simple. Most people forget to breathe when they're uptight. They hold their breath, it changes the pH of their blood, and then they get even more uptight.
So you're just saying if I would just stop for a second.
Stop for a second, take in a deep breath through your nose to the count of 4, hold it for 4, and out through your mouth to the count of 7. It's magic.
I just want you to know he bills people hourly for this, so you just got the first one free. Remember, you can contact me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com or call us toll-free 1-800-290-7226. You can watch all our shows at www.brokersalliance.com right on our homepage. Just click on the on-demand section. When I come back, we're going to talk more with Dr.
You're
Jack.
listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Companies in our business are always touting service, products, and underwriting. And we do that too. But here's the difference. Now enter the world of the elite producer with a value package that cuts us out of the pack. A BD that approves social media marketing of non-FINRA products and doesn't take an override. With the best competition desk in the industry, and for our loyal producers, a true group health plan. No one offers that. Brokers Alliance does.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant. We're with Dr. Jack Singer. We're talking about laying down on the couch with #1 sports authority, the psychologist, who really plays in the NFL. He has major league players. And wow, he's bringing the same tools and skill sets to our industry because he says we're kind of similar to them. Dr. Jack, I never thought I was up at the level of an NFL quarterback.
Well, you are, and you have to decide whether you're going to be an all-pro or just an average NFL quarterback, and that's a decision you can make.
I just saw the All-Star game. By the way, it was kind of a sad one. It was pretty lopsided and won early on.
Yes.
But when you're at the level of an all-star, not just you're making it to the pros, I mean, that's just, wow, nirvana alone.
Right.
But now we're up at the top. How can I take my game? Let's say I've made it. I have producers that are making between $250,000 and $500,000. They want to know what's the next level up because there are major league 7-figure producers that are out there. Well, how can I crack that ceiling? I've kind of been leveled out at that number, maybe 300,000 or 400,000.
The fastest thing to do is to find out what the distractions are. Let me give your audience a formula, a simple formula. Your performance, whether you're a producer, an athlete, you know, a physician, an attorney, it doesn't matter. Your performance at any time always equals your talent and motivation minus distractions. If you have no distractions, your talent will always show in your performance. But what are the biggest distractions? Internal self-talk, negative self-talk that gets in the way. So once we can learn to control those distractions and keep them at a minimum, 0 if possible, elevation happens automatically in your performance.
Well, I'm trying to think about, when I think about distractions, I think about my I don't have this corporate glaucoma. I am kind of like anything that comes into my peripheral vision pulls me offline.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ADD or not, but my thought is many of us are distracted because our field of vision is so wide, our practice is so general, that we really can't focus on that, and anything can kind of distract us.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That people really don't stay focused on the goal. When I teach people about goal setting, I teach them things that you normally don't learn when you go to a business goal setting formula. For example, I ask them to visualize the goal as if they've accomplished it already, and it's a form of self-hypnosis that I teach them. I also ask them to list all of the ways you can sabotage yourself from attaining that goal. Most people don't think about that, but they do it all the time.
That phrase, self-sabotage, I just think, give me a little bit, unpack that a bit.
People sabotage themselves all the time. They tell themselves, here's a goal. Here's a goal that I want for the year to accomplish. I want to bring in X number of high-value clients, and I want to be able to do this much in terms of my production. But what they're not telling themselves is, what am I doing that's getting in the way of me performing that way? They're not examining it that way. They're simply thinking of more products to sell their clients or to discuss with their clients. They're thinking of more opportunities to bring in more clients, but they're not thinking about what they need to do and to change what's happening that's gotten in the way of their performance.
I just saw, for whatever reason, I just saw Sergeant York, the old black and white film.
Yeah.
And I saw when they were clearing a field back in those days. We're not talking about heavy agricultural equipment. He had to remove all the rocks, all the obstacles first before he could even do day one of plowing, of turning the earth. He had to remove all these obstacles. And I think sometimes we're out there, hey, let's get to it, let's get going. We have a time schedule to keep the seasons coming. I got to plant, I got to harvest, but I haven't even taken the rocks out of the way. And I noticed he was taking them out of his field.
Well, you're wonderful at metaphors, Steve. That's a terrific metaphor for getting the obstacles out of your way so you can see the goal clearly. And that's what's critical for everybody. Most people are not focused on the obstacles, they're simply focused on the goal. If you look at the obstacles that are standing in front of you and clear them away, the goal will be much easier to attain.
Let's say I buy into, yes, I have self-doubt, and maybe some of this has been programmed into me by parents, and unintentionally, let's just say. And I have this. Now I'm wanting to transition. I want to make a segue from that. At least I ID'd it now. I recognize it. I confess it freely. Now I want to move to my second platform. How do I transition over there?
You take a risk. And the risk is to change your behavior and not worry about the outcome. Most people stick with the behavior even when it's unfortunate because they think the unknown is even worse. It's like people staying in a bad relationship. Frequently they stay in it because they perceive that the unknown could be worse, so at least I know what I'm dealing with here. And that's absolutely the wrong kind of thinking. You don't stay in a bad relationship, you free yourself of a bad relationship if you've done everything you can to make it better. And people frequently will stay stuck because they don't believe that they're capable of doing better. So you have to take the
risk warranted? Is it as big as it seems to the person? Like if you say, I want you to take a risk, and the guy goes, oh no, I don't do risk, right? We have our whole client base after 2008 has shifted. The baby boomer mentality is like, get me out of the market. I don't take risk. I can't dip my pool. The S&P VIX bothers me, right? And that's transferred back onto us as advisors, knowing that you really need to get back in.
Right.
So how do I, is the risk really as big as it seems, or is it, if I just inflated it?
Well, the risk is always inflated by people. So when I say risk, I say, every successful person has been a risk taker. You have to risk at some point. If I was talking to the end result, to the client of the producer, I would be talking about the fact that scary things often open the doors to success. So when the market is down, instead of being scared, focus on what you're missing here. This is a buying opportunity, for example. And we teach, the producers to think in the same way, that we want you to understand that in the long run, you're going to come out ahead. And one of the best ways to do it is to point out what they've done with their own portfolio. I did it, so why would you want to take that risk?
We're way beyond Norman Vincent Peale here with Dr. Jack Singer. I really appreciate that. Listen, you can watch this show, yesterday's show, and all our shows this week on www.brokersalliance.com, right on our on-demand section. Just go ahead and hit it on our homepage. Well, that's the Buzz on the Biz for today. Get in the zone, the business insurance
The Biz
zone.
is brought to you by Brokers Alliance. a national leader in insurance products, support services, and educational workshops. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.